Okay, hello everybody and welcome this evening. Thanks for joining us, where we're going to share with you the concept designs for the Moor Street Gateway scheme. My name is Michael Watson. I'm the portfolio lead for Eastside and Digbeth for Birmingham City Council. And I'm joined today by colleagues Martin van Dalen Andrews, who's the project manager, and Hiro Eso, who's the lead architect for the project. We also have colleagues from our stakeholder engagement team who are here to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so the agenda for this evening, we'd like to share with you the background and reasoning for the scheme. We'd like to share with you the aims and what we hope to achieve when the scheme is complete. We have our design proposals, our very exciting design that we'd like to share with you. We want to discuss with you what happens during the public consultation period, which we are now in. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll explain how you are able to do that by logging on to Birmingham Be Heard, which will be shown later on. We'll share with you what happens after the consultation period and how we deal with any comments or queries that we receive. And then we'll open the floor to questions. There's a Q&A period at the end, where we can spend as much time as is necessary to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, so the first point we'd like to raise is how the Moor Street Gateway project assists us to deliver policy as Birmingham Council. This is a package of public realm and active travel projects that will enhance the public space, will encourage development, and it will create healthy environments which promote investment. Now, this is keenly aligned with the Birmingham Transport Plan. It's aligned with our future city plan, our route to net zero, air quality assessments, the inclusive growth strategy, and everyone's battle, everyone's business. Birmingham City Council want to reduce the volume of vehicles using the city centre and increase the pedestrian movement and other modes of active travel, such as cycling, walking, scooting, wheeling. And this package of public realm projects and active travel projects will assist us in that goal. This objective is the primary focus of the Moor Street Gateway scheme and aligns with the strategic plans as noted previously. Additionally, the scheme will seek to connect the city core through the one station concept, making journeys between the stations and onward travel easier to navigate and a more reliable and enjoyable experience. So a bit about the scheme background, and ultimately the question here is, why are we looking to deliver this scheme? What is it about? The scheme is shown on the screen here in an inverted Y. You see the green and blue images on screen. They are the central area of our scheme on Moor Street, Queensway, the Queensway Tunnel, and Moor Street and Park Street depicted at the bottom of the image there. You'll notice that there are two black lines extending out from either side of that image, noted as Zone 4 and Zone 5. And these are cycle routes, segregated cycle routes that are ultimately connecting the A34 and A38. The scheme that you can see here on the screen, the scheme area, it's currently dominated by cars. The highway is extensive in this area. There are at least 4 lanes of traffic along Moor Street, Queensway. It has limited pedestrian space. Walkways are relatively narrow, and the ratio of car space to pedestrian space is weighted heavily in the favour of cars and vehicles. There's a confusing crossing arrangement outside Primark, across from Moor Street Station and the Bullring. There's a lack of greenery. Although we do have a few trees on Moor Street, Queensway itself, they are sporadic and do not sit well with the plans for Park Birmingham and our future city plan. There's also known antisocial behaviour in St Martin's Queensway Tunnel, and it's been reported by the public and people that use that space that they feel unsafe when they transfer through it. There's also poor connectivity and a lack of existing cycle connectivity between the A34 and A38 and we've had, again, reports from cycling groups that this area is not favourable for them to cycle through. With the arrival of HS2's Curzon Street station, there's a keenness to turn what is ultimately the back door into Birmingham into the new welcoming gateway into the city of nature. And the scheme aims are important to us, so we benchmark ourselves against the aims of the scheme at the outset, and we will review them and monitor them after the scheme is complete. We'd like to create a recognisable one-station identity, an inclusive place which is safe, bright and attractive to travel through and to spend time in. We'd like to provide a welcoming arrival into Birmingham as a city of nature with enhanced trees, plants and other greenery. We want to improve signs and information and connections so people can navigate the area more easily. That includes wayfinding for some of the key projects that are in and around Moor Street Gateway. We'd like to widen footways, so as I mentioned earlier, the space is dominated by cars. We want to change that and widen footways to enhance the walking and wheeling routes and to remove unnecessary barriers to movement. That could be things like bins, street clutter, furniture, things that are currently in the way that are unnecessary. We want to improve connections for people walking, wheeling and cycling between New Street, Moor Street and HS2 Curzon Street stations. Deliver a safe cycle connection through the city centre and between the existing cycle routes, specifically on the A34 and A38. We want to improve the bus passenger experience when waiting, alighting or arriving. And we want to maintain bus services and service vehicle access in the area. This is a key part of town, and we understand the importance of being able to access the city core through Moor Street Gateway. So this is the gateway, the Moor Street Gateway master plan. You can see the image on the screen is quite large. What the design team have done is split this into 5 zones to help explain the changes that have been made. And the diagram shows the central section of our scheme area. You'll note that I previously mentioned there are 2 cycle routes on either side of this, one at the end of the Queensway Tunnel and one, as you can see, at the Clayton Hotel to the right of that on the screen. The central section is split into 3 zones, so St Martin's Queensway Tunnel, Moor Street Queensway, with the interface with HS2 and Curzon Street Station, and then Park Street and Moor Street. So those are your 3 zones in the central section. There are a further 2 zones which show the new cycle route connecting the existing cycle network to the A34 and A38. Now I'll now pass to Hero from the design team, and Hero will take you through the design features and the proposed improvements for all 5 zones. So Hero, over to you.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, good afternoon. So zone 1, which hopefully you can see the concept image on the screen for. This is a very key connective area that will essentially be the singular space that joins certainly the 3 transport nodes of New Street Station, Moor Street Station and the future HS2 Curzon Street stations, as well as all the landowners, the activities surrounding the study area. So we anticipate up to 3,000, possibly even 4,000 people passing through this space in that future scenario when the projects are finished and the transformation in this part of the city is complete. We've had a lot of feedback about concerns about this space, as Michael has picked up. There is opportunity certainly to tackle antisocial behaviour or spaces that may foster antisocial behaviour, which we want to try and eliminate. So the measures include reducing those opportunities, ultimately creating safer, pleasant, enjoyable places to pass through. And this may include a number of interventions, including an ability to provide music or information within the space. We want to widen the footway as far as possible. We want to be improving the quality of the space through lighting, And we think there is an amazing canvas on the, certainly on the screen on the right hand side. You'll be able to see the wall, which could incorporate artwork, most likely from local talent, something to be considered in the detailed design stage. The space also will be occupied by bus and cyclist, public transportation, vehicular traffic, as you can see on the left-hand side. So it's an important space to get right. It's a space that obviously needs to balance the various users of the space, but we think our approach really does prioritize the importance of pedestrian movement through the space. We now flip to a view of Zone 2. So this is the Queensway, Moor Street Queensway public realm, really a linear urban place that is absolutely key to get right, certainly in terms of that balance. So perhaps you might not be able to recognize the view, but this is a view from the future station square of the high-speed rail station, looking back towards Primark, looking essentially across Queensway, Moor Street Queensway. So the transformative greening, hopefully, is something that will strike you in this view. Our improvements include a segregated cycle lane provision, which connects with cycle hubs at key locations. It's not all about the throughput of cycles, of course. We need to be able to get onto it and get off it safely. Making sure that we have generous footways and crossings which are intuitive and safe and pleasant to walk across. Enhanced greenery is obviously obvious, hopefully, from the view, which we're trying very, very hard, because we know that currently there is a lot of infrastructure beneath the surface. So we have to be bold but realistic in terms of where we can achieve that. And the concept so far has positioned the trees where we believe we can achieve this transformative greenery. I think next slide would be useful. And so this is still in the same space, slightly further north, looking down towards the Bullring Arch. Hopefully you can see that on axis with the centralized cycle routes. So, I mean, what's incredible in this space is not only is there the construction delivery of the HS2 Curzon Street station well underway, this space essentially is adjacent to something like 20 hectares of city centre development. So it's a really important opportunity to ensure that we have this balanced space for the future, one that's not predominantly vehicular in nature, but one that really promotes active travel. And clearly you have the cycle lane in the view, but also the generous and pleasant spaces for pedestrians also. So the provision here is, well, very similar to the previous view, the more southerly view of Zone 2, with the reconfigured pedestrian environment to really make their space much more generous. Next slide. So this is the Zone 3, the elbow around the Bullring towards Smithfield and Digworth. And in that area, there's again over 15 hectares of development so far. So it's really important that this space provides for that future requirement. So it's not just about today. It's not just about the sort of next Christmas shopping moment. It's for the future when we have new communities and the transformative space, hopefully, that we will be supporting. So again, in the plan, you'll be able to see the centralized cycle lane. In many respects, it's a really pivotal move to try and create the generous pedestrian environment necessary, we believe, in this area that really unlocks the rebalancing that I mentioned earlier. Next slide.
Thank you very much, Hiro. We'll now hand over to Martin, who's the project manager for the scheme, and he will explain the additional zones, which are zones 4 and 5 cycle route.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, everyone. So Zone 4 is the Smallbrook Queensway section that links the St Martin's Tunnel down to Her Street and the Hill Street junction. And we are looking to connect from the tunnel space down to the existing cycle route along the A38 corridor to the south of Birmingham. So the proposal for this area aims to deliver a number of upgrades to the infrastructure in the space, including a new signal control junction at the Worcester Street access to the right of the screen just as you come out of the tunnel. It looks to upgrade the existing informal crossing provision to a signal control crossing as part of the junction. Provision of a two-way cycle track that's segregated from vehicles along Smallbrook Queensway to link down the Her Street cycle track into New Street Station and obviously the wider city centre cycle provision. And improvements to pedestrian crossings between the Boring and New Street Station in the space as well. If we can just pop onto Zone 5, thank you. So Zone 5 is a section on the northern end of Moor Street Queensway, extending along James Watt Queensway to the existing cycle route that links to the A34 in the vicinity of the Children's Hospital and Aston University. So we're looking to connect that together by providing a two-way segregated cycle track between Priory Queensway junction with Moor Street Queensway and the A34 cycle track, and including improvements to the junction at the Jennings Road Moor Street Queensway junction, which is on the top right of the image on screen, and improving crossing provision at a revised Dale End James Watt Queensway junction, which shortens the overall crossing distance in this space. That's my section, so back to yourself, Michael, for the next slide.
Okay, thank you, Martin, and again, thanks to Hero for talking us through the scheme there. If anybody has questions or would like us to explain anything more about the detail that has been covered, then there is a Q&A section at the end of this broadcast, and we'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. The public consultation itself has been running since the 14th of October, and it will end on Friday the 15th of November. We've already had one person event, which was yesterday at Cars Lane Church, and there is another planned for Wednesday the 6th of November at the same location, Cars Lane Church, from 4 PM to 7 PM. We'd love to hear your feedback on any ideas and designs for this area, as well as your general opinion on the area and how you move about the space. So do you use it for work? Do you go shopping at a weekend? Do you move from one transport mode to another? Do you interchange between stations? All of this feedback is really, really important to help us plan and design our work so that we can meet as many of your needs as possible. I encourage you all to follow the link that we're about to put on the chat, if you can see the chat, or you are welcome to scan the QR code, which is on screen now. It will take you to Birmingham's Be Heard consultation platform, where you can view all of the materials and drawings again at your own leisure, and you can complete the response form to tell us what you think of our project. If you prefer a printed copy, you can hand mark up a printed copy, and these can be picked up from both the Library of Birmingham or the reception desk at the Council House in Victoria Square. With regards to next steps, following the consultation period, so as I said, it ends on the 15th of November, we will collate and review all of the feedback that we've received, and that will help us develop the designs further as we prepare the business case for the scheme. We're now into the Q&A section of the broadcast, so please, if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them and they'll be read out and answered as best we possibly can. I would hope to hand over to Claire and Sophie at this point, who will run the Q&A session.
Thanks, Michael. So thanks ever so much for those that have engaged in the session so far. We've had a few questions in and we've got some that have come in prior to the event. So we've had a comment in for Zone 1, St Martin's Queensway Tunnel. Have we considered using some of this space for cycling facilities, such as cycle storage, cycle shop repairs, as well as lockers? And they put a link in there regarding existing facilities at Grand Arcade in Cambridge. So throw that out probably to Hero regarding the tunnel.
Yes, it's a great question. So I think we are at the stage of collecting all the possible curated uses within that space. I think one of the issues that we will probably need to consider further is obviously how safe it is to not just use the space, but to get to that space and to ensure that the provision that we are creating for the pedestrian users are respected. So at the minute, I think nothing's been excluded, but some of the early sketches does indicate that if we do introduce a cycle storage facility there, we may create inadvertently some clashes with pedestrian movement. But I think it's a really very helpful suggestion, and certainly the reference is very helpful. So at this stage, really considering all sorts, we probably feel at the moment that we don't want to necessarily create a space where it is occupied long term by people, like a cafe or a sort of facility for people to be occupying in the space just yet. But again, nothing's been excluded. We're going through that, I guess, optioneering process, and certainly would inform the detailed design stage to come.
And Hero, I would add to that, I suppose, that although it's slightly further away than the tunnel itself, but the HS2 scheme design includes 2 extensive cycle parking and storage areas at either side of Station Square. That is also something that that we should bear in mind. That there is facility there, although not in the tunnel itself, as part of these plans at present.
Right. Just staying on the tunnel question, a question has come in. Why is there no segregated cycle provision through St Martin's Queen Way so that cyclists can get through it safely? It's very wide, so the consideration is that there must be some room.
I think that perhaps is best answered by Martin.
Martin, you're on mute.
From a technical perspective.
Okay, great question. Can you hear me now?
Certainly can.
Fantastic, thank you. So in terms of the segregated cycle provision through St Martin's Queensway Tunnel, we do have a limited amount of space within the tunnel, and what we've tried to do is prioritise pedestrian movement through there to connect up the walking routes between the 3 stations, New Street, Curzon Street and Moor Street. We also have tried to maximise the amount of pedestrian space in there, and when we've looked at trying to provide a segregated cycle provision, we are unable to provide that within the space available between the building line of the Boring to the southern side and on the northern side as well, to sort of the service yard and the steps that go up towards the Boring centre. So it's not possible to create that space. What we have done is we've narrowed down the carriageway to bring the lane widths to the right width so that the buses don't sort of try to force their way past any cyclists on the street. And we've also at either end created a safe space so that cyclists can re-enter the centralised cycle lanes at either end in a controlled manner that doesn't interface with the bus movements, so that those different modes with different abilities and movement speeds are moving through the space in a way that keeps the user safe in that location.
Thanks, Martin. I hope that answers the question, but please pop another one in if there's anything further you'd like to ask. One of the questions that came in previously, to Michael, how was the decision made to look at this particular area for improvement?
Yeah, good question. So this area, I'm sure some of you will be aware that the one station concept has been in and around Birmingham for some time. The idea of connecting initially New Street and Moor Street stations is something that's been investigated on previous occasions, as long ago as 10 years ago. Then with the inclusion of or the announcement of HS2 Curzon Station, it makes sense to ultimately join all 3 stations in one central area, and that was ultimately the rationale for the project in the first instance. It was an amalgamation of previous iterations of this project, previous sort of scheme designs or or ideas around a one station concept, teamed with the new impetus of having HS2. And ultimately, the intention is to harness the benefits and unlock the potential of the city core and the additional patronage and passenger numbers that we will see from HS2 to create a much nicer, seamless environment so that people can use all three transport hubs interchangeably, and also to maximise the benefit of the additional patronage of HS2 in this area.
Great, thank you, Michael. And a question from the audience today. Will the cycle lane on Park Street link to Bradford Street cycle lane? Probably one for yourself, Martin, to pick up.
Yep, I knew that one was going to come to me. Thank you, Claire. So in terms of the linkages, I don't know if we can get back onto the slide deck for the Park Street area to sort of show how we've looked to integrate that. So on the zone 3, I think it is. So what we're looking to do with Bradford Street connectivity, if you look on the left-hand side of the plan that's on screen at the moment by St Martin's Church, we are looking to connect into the proposed cycle route that links into part of the Smithfield development proposals. We've got a certain boundary where we work into, but we are working with neighbouring developers and developments in the surroundings to provide a sort of connected cycle route and link through to the A38 corridors.
Great, thank you, Martin. A couple more questions have come in, which is brilliant. Will we be working with Cross City Bus project at TFWM to improve bus access in the area? There is currently issues getting stuck behind, the buses getting stuck behind cars when you're trying to get to the Bullring car parks. I hope I'm getting this right. Moor Street and Bullring car parks. Massive queues for the Bullring car park. So I think that's kind of the impact of buses and cars in the area. So essentially we'll be working with TFWM to plan that out.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Claire. The short answer is yes, and we already have been working with TFWM. Quite a close interface and working relationship as a delivery partner with TFWM. I was going to show a laser pointer on the screen. So just to give an idea of what the question is ultimately about, what we see at peak times is queuing traffic down Digbeth High Street, at the top of the High Street, as cars try to get in to the Bullring car park and also into Selfridge's car park, into Moor Street car park. What we've done as part of this scheme, you can see that hopefully you can see on the screen there's a bus gate in this location here at the bottom of Moor Street, and another bus gate at this location just after Cars Lane, to make this area, this Y shape, a full bus only zone for bus and hackney carriage. Private cars and private hire vehicles would be excluded from these areas, so you would have only bus running. Now, to try and deal with the issue of queuing and backlog of traffic, specifically around Christmas time and perhaps on a Saturday, we have created a turnback in this location. So this enables any vehicles that are queuing, find that they can't get into the car park for one reason or another. It allows them to come and turn back this way and go back down Digbeth High Street if they so wish. It also enables them to attempt to get into Moor Street car park if it's necessary. But the real key intervention here is the reversal of Park Street itself in this location under Park Street Bridge. So you currently traffic from Paternoster Place at this area here, underneath Park Street Tunnel, and you exit out onto the Moor Street Park Street junction. As part of this scheme and a separate scheme known as Digbeth Active Travel and Streets, a full movement strategy for this area has been carried out. And one of the outputs of that is that we will reverse the flow of traffic under Park Street Bridge. Now, the benefit of this is that it creates a release valve for any traffic queuing on Digbeth High Street, trying to get into either Moor Street car park or back down this way. You will also have the ability as a relief valve to come under Park Street and onto Bordersley Street. And then you will also be able to get into the back of Moor Street car park via Allison Street or leave the city through Digbeth. So that is a real key measure as part of this area of the city, and it's a key attempt to try and reduce that backlog of traffic that's often jammed up at peak periods as a result of this car park. Hopefully that's answered the question, Claire.
Yeah, I think that's been really good, and actually it starts to answer a little bit of our last question currently in the Q&A, which is what vehicles will be permitted access to Moor Street Gateway, and will parking / access violations be punished? So you've obviously talked a little bit about the bus gate, but what about the rest of the scheme?
Yeah, so the bus gate itself, as I mentioned here, will be from this point down at the bottom of Moor Street up to Cars Lane, and also in the Queensway Tunnel as it is existing. There's only a bus and Hackney carriage able to go there. We also plan to maintain the taxi rank and actually increase the taxi rank outside of Moor Street Station, which is good. But general vehicles and private hire vehicles will not be able to access this area within the bus gate limits. They will, however, if necessary, be able to use Mass House to come along Moor Street Queensway itself and then turn up Cars Lane and back down Albert Street. So there is an ability for cars to use this end of the city. Likewise, cars approaching from Digbeth High Street and Bradford Street would be able to use the turn-back facility at the bottom of Moor Street on Park Street, or use the relief valve, which would be the reversal of Park Street Bridge. And that is ultimately part of the movement strategy for the area. The overall intention of this design is to try and reduce car use and reduce traffic in this part of the city for a multitude of reasons aligned with the Birmingham Transport Plan, and ultimately to make it such a pedestrian-friendly space that cars feel alien in this environment, and that although they can still use it, the space is dominated by pedestrians, and it is not typically a car space that it currently is. You will have buses, you have a lot of buses, it's a real key bus route, but the intention is to pedestrianise it to such a level that cars do not move as freely through this area as they currently do.
So just to clarify, Michael, a question: will there be access to drop off and pick up at Moor Street Station? So I'm assuming yes, if you're a Hackney carriage, but no if you're private vehicle or Uber driver, for example.
That's correct, Claire. Yes. So the taxi rank for Hackney carriages will be maintained and increased outside of Moor Street Station, but there will be no private hire pick-up and drop-off facility in that area.
And is there opportunity to the south of the station, or what would be someone's, if somebody was picking a family member up from Moor Street Station, where are they best placed to wait?
There are, in this area, the intention is to try and reduce car use, I suppose. So vehicles would be able to freely use Moor Street Queensway and turn up Cars Lane. There is no designated pick-up and drop-off locations in this area. However, cars are free to use this area. In the future, we are investigating pick-up and drop-off locations around Park Street, Bordesley Street, that type of area, but not in this location. The intention is to try and encourage active travel modes, and that doesn't include private hire vehicles with regards to pick-up and drop-off in that area.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. I hope that helps with that question. So just one final question then that's come in previously was, how long will it take for this scheme to be built if it goes ahead?
Yeah, I'll take that one as well. So with regards to the last part, if it goes ahead, so that this scheme is partially funded already through the City Regional Sustainable Transport Settlement, or CRUSTS. You may have heard the acronym CRUSTS. So there is £15 million of the funding so far for the scheme, with future funding rounds available to top up any budget deficit. So one of the key differences from 10 years ago and previous iterations of this scheme is there is now real funding available to develop this scheme and to construct it. With regards to construction, we expect to start in 2026. So between now and that 2026 date, there is a period of final business case and detailed design to go through, necessary for any project, but certainly any DFT funded project. We plan to start construction, enabling works and utilities, diversions and protections in 2026. And I expect that there will be around a 5-year construction period. Now, the reason for 5 years is that in the city centre, you can't work for 12 full months because of the Christmas embargo, so you can work for 10 months of the year in the city centre. And this project, given its strategic location with regards to buses, rail and pedestrian access, as well as shopping and retail, would require the construction methodology to be in a more piecemeal format. So relatively smaller areas of the site would be developed and then reopened, and then the construction team would move to the next area. There's always two options in the construction side of things. One is a sort of big impact, quick approach whereby you'd go and take a large area of the highway, do as much as you could in that area. It's a lot of disruption, roads are closed, businesses are impacted, but it's done in, let's say, 3 years instead of 5. Or there is the option to do a longer project period, but maintain all of the accesses for buses, vehicles, shopping, rail throughout the entire construction period. And that is always the preference of the City Council, to maintain business and to maintain transport links, even during extensive strategic construction works. So, short answer to the question is the project is funded, at least partially funded right now, and the construction period will typically be between 2026 and 2031 in preparation for HS2 Curzon Street opening.
Great, thank you, Michael. It looks like that's the end of our Q&A. So thank you so much for anyone that posted a question. I hope they got answered. Obviously, if you've got any further burning questions, you can send it to us in our Birmingham connected email address, which will pop in the chat in a second. Prior to that, I just thought it would be useful for showing you a 360-degree image that we've developed that shows you a before and after of the scheme area. So I'm just going to take control. So hoping that everyone can see. So this just shows you of a before and after of the scheme area. So I'm just going to rotate it so you can just get a feel for obviously what it currently looks like on the left and what it will look like once we've finished our work. You can see it's really well pedestrianised now. Lots of space there, lots of nice trees, very much greening the area. The cycle lane through the central section, segregated away from the buses. And again, over there, the greening again. And that just gives you a flavour as to what we're planning. Go. I'll stop sharing that now. Okay, back to you, Michael. Thanks.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of the consultation session this evening. Thank you very much to all attendees for for firstly joining and also for any questions that you posed. I hope we've done our best to answer them. A reminder again, the link, is the link in the chat?
Yes.
Guys? Yeah.
Yes,
The link
it is.
in the chat, you can follow that to Birmingham Be Heard and leave your feedback. We'd really appreciate it if we did receive your feedback. We'd like to know what you think and feel about the scheme and the principles of it. And with that, we will end the session. Bid you good night. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.